I'm excited to have my friend, my father figure, someone who's extremely important to me, John Ridley, to share a little bit about our journey, his career. And John, so I want to start off talking about how we met and your influence on my life. Do you remember the first time we met?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was in November 2016.
Yep.
You were still in school at the time.
In grad school. Yeah.
Right. Actually, you were in grad school. That's right, you were in grad school. And I only knew you by your name when they'd say, "Take down by G. Money Brown" on the football field. And when I heard the name when you called and wanted to make an appointment, I thought, well, I got to meet this guy. I just have to. I'd heard your name so many times, and your character and your reputation really did precede you. And I thought, this is something I need to do. I've done that many times over my career, but in my case, it was a 3-hour visit. It was a 3-hour visit, and that was probably some of the best time I've spent in my entire career.
Well, thank you. I brought this book with me today.
Oh, yeah.
The Traveler's Gift. And
by Andy Andrews.
And you wrote me this note in this book, and it says, and this is from November 14th, 2016. "To a wonderful young man with outstanding goals, think big, dream big, and always think of the possibilities. I'm proud to be your friend. Give it your best every day. Sincerely, John Ridley." And I read this book. It was one of the best books I read. It's about this character, David Ponder, that he's going through a crisis in life. And there's 7 lessons. And one that stuck with me was the angel Gabriel came into him, and Gabriel is a messenger of God, and persist with resilience. And that was one of the things.
Without exception.
Without exception.
That's exactly on his, but it is. It's resilience, he's saying. But yeah, persistence without exception.
And so this is one of the books that truly changed my life, and you gave it to me.
Thank you. I met that fella many years ago, and he is a great. He has a lot of things, and I'm glad you quoted his persistence without exception, because I have found that to be extremely important to a lot of people. Faith-based.
100%.
Yeah. Honesty and integrity, and persistence without exception is one of the most difficult things that most everybody is a challenge. And if you can remember that even in the times when stuff are tough.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody succeeds in life, whether it be the greatest father, the greatest mother, the best friend, unless there is trouble, tough times.
Definitely.
But if you can persist through those and keep your focus, I think that's a big thing. And so that's been a guiding light, excuse me.
I like it. John, just so people have a reference, we've traveled together to Europe. You've come down to my hometown in Mississippi.
Oh, yeah.
We've gone to Florida. I mean, we've gone everywhere together. So this dynamic usually, especially with this age range, is usually a little unusual. But
quite frankly, yeah, it is.
We've made it work, and we spent a lot of time together, and it's been awesome. I want to ask you, what started you pouring into other people's lives? And I know, we're talking about me today, but I've seen you over the years give people hand-ups, scholarships, opportunities, meeting the right people. What brought you to that point to where you say, I want to help others do well?
Well, I think it starts when you're very small. I was raised in what I call a multi-generational family. There were 5 generations that lived on the same street in Dawson Springs, Kentucky, and I could get up in the morning at 8 years old and ride my bicycle and have 4 breakfasts if I wanted them. And so I had the influence and the opportunity of my grandparents, my great-grandparents, and actually as a young child I knew my great-great-grandmother. So the point is that those people influenced me, and they had a giving spirit, and a spirit that was faith-based, and that continued with my mother, who lived to be 99 years old, and so I had that influence all my life. I guess the big triggering factor was in October of 1971, my dad passed away, and I was afraid that I wasn't going to be able to return to Western because of finances. And so I I went back home at Thanksgiving. He'd passed in the fall of the year, and I went back home at Thanksgiving. My mom just sat me down and said, I just don't think you can go back. And the option was to either work in a factory or go to the coal mines. And I thought, this is not really what I wanted to do. And so anyway, I got a call from the president of the Rotary Club, and I don't mind telling you, his name was Paul Houghton. Mr. Houghton was also the superintendent for the utility company. So he was a businessman in a small town of Dawson Springs. And I went to his office, and he said to me, there's a young man who he failed to complete his grades at Vanderbilt, and his scholarship it's called the L.S. Wood Charitable Trust out of Chicago. Never knew these people at all. And said, would you like to have his remaining 3 years to go to school? It wasn't a full ride, but it paid basic. And then I was in the fraternity, I was the house manager, and they gave me room and meals. And so then I worked at a janitor service in the summer at night and went to school in the day. And so that giving spirit was because of that. Now, the thing that I think is so important is whoever this L.S. Wood guy was, there was only one commitment to get this scholarship. Now, I had to do grades. I had to sign something. Now, most people would say, oh my gosh, if you flunk, you're going to pay it back. And this is what it said. And I'm going to paraphrase it. I wish I'd have saved the document, but I didn't. But I paraphrased it, and it said this: if I'm ever in a position to help somebody else get an education, I will. That's all it said.
You've done that.
Well, but it was, I'm afraid there are times when people don't take these responsibilities as a moral obligation.
Yes.
And I don't want any praise out of it, because that wouldn't be right either. But in our case, it was natural.
It was. And that's what was so different. So just kind of give people a little bit more. When I met John, it was actually an assignment from one of my grad school professors, Randy Capps, rest in peace. And he said...
Great human being.
And he said, go meet one person in the community that you want to be like. And I knew I had an interest in real estate, and I met with a local businessman here in town, and he told me to go meet this person. Then that person told me to go meet someone else. And long story short, I ended up meeting 27 different local business people, and one being you. And I made some good...
Was I first or was I last? I don't remember.
No, you weren't last. I remember about the first 3 to 4,
yeah.
And then after that, they just started all running together. And actually, though, I do think it was towards the end.
Yeah, I'm sure it was.
And here's the reason why. I was sitting with my then girlfriend, now wife, and I'm like, I've been doing this all semester. I'm tired of meeting people. I don't know if I even want to take this. I might just cancel.
Oh, really?
And she's like, you've already scheduled it.
Yeah.
Don't waste somebody's time just going, okay, fine, I'll go. And so anyways, I don't really know what made ours so unique and different, but we just clicked, we bonded. We met that first time at your office downtown.
Yeah.
Then we met up again maybe a week or so and went to dinner. And it just kind of went from there. Like I said, here 9 years later.
Yeah, 9 years.
So I want to kind of go from your desire to help people to your career. You recently retired from the financial securities business.
Yeah.
And had a great career. How many years?
37.
So 37-year career.
Yeah.
And this is public information.
Yeah.
But your firm managed close to $700 million in assets.
A little north of that, but that's,
a little north
close.
of that. Sorry.
That's good enough.
A little north of $700 million in assets. How would you tell someone who is looking to get into that industry how you got to that point? Because that's no small number. I mean, I've heard of people, if they ever hit $100 million in assets managed for clients, that's a good career. You 7-8 times that.
Well, persistence without exception, that was one thing. I mean, that industry, I started literally, and that's too long a story for this interview, but I literally started at the crash in 1987, the stock market crash. And they were laying off, they laid off 10,000 people, and some major firms, the one I wanted to go to work for, E.F. Hutton, went out of business in the crash of 87. And that was the firm that they had the leading training program, so I'd done my research and so forth. I had sold a business that I had originated and sold to a chain out of Louisville, Kentucky, I ran it for 10 years in some of the worst economic times. Inflation was way more than it was now. Interest rates to borrow money at the bank was in the teens. I mean, I paid up to 18% interest on short-term money. People talk about the environment we're in now, and we're in some volatile periods. But so anyway, the question was, how did that happen? And I think the main thing is that I learned a long time ago, even as a child, you can't let people take away your dream. And as soon as you do that, now I was never going to be a great basketball star. I mean, I could have, in my head, I could have said, well, I'm going to be a basketball star. Well, I mean, obviously, I don't have the height or the talent. But there are goals that people tell you, or that have, and they don't follow through on it because some adult says, well, you'll never do that.
Yeah.
And that's a story you could tell too. I mean, you've told me that right off that the high school, was the high school coach?
High school coach.
Yeah, you'll never play D1 football. Well,
yeah.
That actually turned into a challenge for you.
It did.
In my case, it said, well, this person was an adult. You can't ever do that. I wanted to be governor of the state of Kentucky. And my barber told me, he said, boy, don't you know that no one from Dawson Springs, Kentucky will be the governor of the state of Kentucky? And guess who was the governor 2 terms? My cousin Steve Beshear. 2 terms. He just didn't get his hair cut at that barbershop. Now, that's not a joke. That's a true story.
That's real. That's real.
That's a real story. And I've told that many times. But
yeah.
So dream big and stay with your dream. And don't let somebody tell you. Now, here's the problem. Problem is that we were taught as a young kid, you're going to fail. You might fail. Don't fail. Don't fail on that spelling test. Don't fail. Well, I don't like that word because failing is a defeating idea.
Yes, 100%.
You know this in sports. But if you said, hey, it just didn't work this time, then that's the difference. And what do? You try something different. You go around. The metaphor in sports for life struggles is very, very good. You've taught me that. And that's another thing about our relationship. You can't imagine how much you've taught me.
Well, you're very kind. And we'll dive into that here a little more. You mentioned being from Dawson Springs.
Yeah.
One of our governors, Steve Beshear, became governor from Dawson Springs. Dawson Springs has maybe 5,000 people in total?
Yeah, about 3. We always just said 3,000 because that was a good round.
About 3,000 people. For people that are wondering, you've, again, great career. How do young people, myself, 20s, 30s, who don't come from a lot of money, who come from small towns, don't have the connections that some people may have had to help propel their career, what do you tell someone who's looking to take that next step using networking, using the influence of their university like WKU and other places? What do you tell those people? Hey, I come from the same type of environment, but here are the things I did that helped me get here. Well, I think you're a testament to that, and you could do your own podcast with that whole story, that testimonial that I've heard you speak in front of a lot of gentlemen. You remember the one that was at the church-based thing that we did. But anyway, I really think the thing is that to tell someone what to do, you got to be your own. No one can turn around and be John Ridley and go his steps. Everybody's going to do G. Money Brown's. They can't do that, and anybody we know. So you've got to focus on and leverage the skills and talents that you have. Now, folks that might be an introvert and don't want to be out in front of public, well, you don't have to do public speaking, but that doesn't mean that you can't be in a small group. Learn to pray in a small group. I mean, the basics to break through some of these things, to speak out loud and go to a committee meeting, a public forum, and listen to how other people make their... So networking doesn't have to be, I'm going to get on LinkedIn. Let me veer off here. Ron Rhodes asked me to come and speak to his class, as you know. And so in the class, I've done this twice at the business college, I said, I want you all to, before we start the lecture or the discussion, I want you all to look around this room. Now, there were 25 in this group. I said, I want you to look around this room and I want you to tell me how many of the people that you've been in class with all semester, how many of these people do you really know? Now, I'm not talking you sat down next to them and said, what do you have for lunch?
I'm talking about, do you know if what hometown they're from, how they got to Western, why they're focused on this. I mean, easy conversational things. And I said, at the end of the class, I'm going to ask you how many people in this 25 that you know. Now, at the end of the class, I pointed to people. I'd say, young lady, tell me, how many people do you know in here? And she would say, 2. Then I'd go over here and, sir, 3. How many do you know? 1. There was no one that got over 4 people in a class that they had been with the whole semester.
Yeah.
Now, fast forward that 10 years. That group of people, how many people do you think will be a CEO, a principal of a school, the head of a healthcare, went through nursing, whatever they're doing, or a big financial person, or somebody in real estate? And their career, this person that I'm talking to, that I appointed, I only know 2, would like to say, oh my gosh, you know, that guy over there, he was in my class at Western. Well, my point is that wherever you're planted, that's where your network. I have got 6 fraternity brothers that we have stayed in contact, and all of them were successful. Every one of them, in their way.
Do you care to name them?
Well, I think that would be, you know how, I would be boasting on them, and it would look like I was boasting too to be a part of that group. But the point is it doesn't have to be. I mean, Dawson Springs, Kentucky. I mean, who the heck would ever thought that I've traveled to over 50 countries in the world, you know, and frequently, and I've done that through business and pleasure and getting ready to, anyway.
Yeah, you got several trips coming up here.
I do. But the point being is that if someone took that down, I'll tell you a story that my mom told me. My mom told me one time, she said, when you sit down in a crowd and somebody says, and you ask them, say, well, what have you been doing? And they say, I took my family to Disney World. My mother says, do not one time say, oh, I've done that, and then launch into your story.
Yeah.
Because you ask them a question. If you'll ask questions and not do all the talking, which I've done today.
No, you're doing great.
You'll find out more about somebody. And that's how I was successful, I think, in the financial industry. I can tell you how old people are just by talking to them for a few minutes. And at the end of it, I'll say, okay, so you're 62 years old. Well, how'd you know that? Well, you told me in the conversation when you graduated from high school. You told me that. I said, it didn't take much, you know. And the question I said, what year did you graduate in high school? I didn't ask you how old you were. You see what I'm saying about figuring out things? Then you talk about, well, tell me about something about your business. And before you know it, somebody will tell you they own 4 apartment complexes, duplexes in the west end of Nashville. They've trapped
these things.
And all of a sudden you can run the numbers. Now either they're going to be really big in debt and they're leveraging somebody else's money, or you can figure out that they've got some assets they can live off of.
So speaking of real estate, I want to transition into our business. I won't tell the first story about how you helped me buy my first rental on camera. I won't tell that story.
That's okay. You can just say I helped you out.
But now, again, you know, we met 9 years later. We own several million in real estate together. And the second property I ever bought, you were my partner on it. 6 units in downtown Bowling Green, a 4-plex and a duplex. That day,
you went to that auction by yourself.
I went to the auction by myself.
How old were you?
Well, this is 2020. I'm not good at math here, so
you
I don't know.
Too.
25, 26. But at 25, 26 years old.
Had you ever been to an auction to buy something before?
No. And I was nervous as they come. I'm on the phone. I'm like, should I bid again? I don't know. I'm not going to bid. You know, in auctioneers, they have all the voices going and they're all excited. And I don't know what they say. It sounds like they're speaking in tongue. But you didn't come to that auction, but you did something that I don't know if ever registered with you. You came to me at my job at that time, and you dropped off your checkbook. And I said, well, what should I go to? How much should I bid? And I'm going to paraphrase slightly, but you said, I trust you, have at it. And I'm thinking to myself, why does he trust 25, 26-year-old G? What have I done to garner this type of respect and trust? But that moment when you did that, it actually gave me more confidence. I'm like, okay, I've shown something that he believes in. What about me led you to that point to where I can trust him to do this?
It was our connection at the soul. It's hard to put in words. I think people go through life and you'll hear people talk about, I met my mate of the life and I was 14 years old. And then all of a sudden somebody tells you you're too young to have that type of relationship. You pass through life. There's several people that has happened to me. Most of them were my mentors. Bart Hagerman, Battle of the Bulge, great human being, gave back to his community. He's passed, obviously. His wife, both of them were mentors in the church. Bob Gillespie, senior guy with Kraft Foods, had the entire territory of Texas, had, I think, 270 men. At that time, it was all men, but, those types of people. My great-grandfather, he was a humble man. He had a team of mules, and he was like a truck driver, put a long time ago. You know what I'm saying? So that connection that you and I had, I think it was intentional. I think it was spirit felt. And you exhibited characteristics that can't be masked. Now, you've met a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it's all about the watch. Let me show you my big watch I got and all this, which we can do another podcast. It's, again, another mentor of mine, Bob Dunwoody, or Be Do Have. We'll talk about that another time. But what I saw in you is that inner spirit. You're caring for others. I could tell a great story on you.
Go for it.
Well, I don't know if I can do it without crying. That's my problem, because it meant so much to me.
It's okay.
Well, when you came to me originally, you told me about that you had been an athlete, that you had been on scholarship, and that you really didn't have any money.
No.
Now, I want to make this perfectly clear. I have not, that we're 50-50 partners, but it's an equal partnership. I've done some things to help us both along the way, but G Money has carried his own weight, and you can see that's a challenge. But the point is that he came to me and I said, well, look, I've got this farm and I need some work done, but it's nothing but manual labor. And I'll pay you didn't I say this?
Yeah.
And I'll pay you a fair price of manual labor plus a little bit, because I wanted to help you get your debt down. But he still worked. It wasn't that I gave him money to do these things. He actually physically worked. And so back to Alex, his precious wife, G Money, I said, well, what are you going to do this weekend? G Money said, oh, no. I said, Alex is coming to town, and she, this is the first time we're going to have dinner together and so forth. She was from Louisville. And I go to the farm, and I'm on the tractor bush hogging. And I look up over the field, and here comes this man, this huge silhouette of a human being walking through the grass. And I'm thinking, who the heck is out here at the farm? And closer, it was G Money. And so I stopped the tractor, and I look at him, and I said, what are you doing out here? He said, you didn't answer my text message, and I did that 2 or 3 times. I've called you. It went to voicemail. He said, I was concerned about you. Now, he had his girlfriend there, and you took your time to be concerned about me. And when that passion is for some other people, you weren't doing it because you were on the clock. You didn't do it for any other reason than you. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, I remember vividly. And my biggest reason for being so concerned, to be fair, John is reckless on that tractor. He goes down hills and things, and he turns fast.
Don't tell my insurance agent that.
He likes to go fast, and I'm thinking, gosh, because there's a few times when I was out there with him, and I'm like, John, you really need to be a little careful here. And so,
I am more careful now.
It was kind of midday when I started reaching out to him. I don't even remember what I wanted, and I'm like, okay. He usually answers his phone, and if he does, he calls back with a reasonable amount of time. And so I tell Alex, I'm like, Alex, listen, just for my own peace of mind, let's just make sure this thing hasn't tipped over and he's pinned and he can't get up.
Well, it truly solidified. I don't know that was a triggering point of how, back to the checkbook question, I don't know that was the reason. But we were involved. I mean, really, I gave you my checkbook. Everybody thinks, oh my God, he just opened up the family heirlooms, and gave him everything. Well, I didn't do that. you know, I mean, all I'd had to do is call the bank and say, you don't honor this check. I mean, you know, it wasn't, but to you it meant something. And I think it gave you the confidence. And we had already discussed all this in advance. This was not just, oh, here, go do this.
Yeah.
And neither one of us do things that are not strategically planned.
Yes.
How many deals recently have we passed on? Just
Several.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. And why?
the numbers don't pencil.
And you know, that's once again, I've learned that not just from you, but others. But your influence has been very big on me. You know, if you're pushing something and it doesn't seem right, you know, you really need to trust your gut. Now, that doesn't mean that, oh, I've got this dream and it's not working out. Well, do you need to figure out maybe is the dream off a little bit, or you see what I mean? I mean, but the deals we passed on, well, we've been very fortunate that we didn't take them.
They 100% worked out. The deals you pass on are sometimes the ones that make you the most money.
Hey, oh, you're the best. Yeah, and who says that to us?
Who did say that to us?
Jim Martins.
Well, Jim's actually, I'm actually interviewing Jim next.
Oh, today?
Yeah. Yes, it's going to be at his house.
You tell him I brought him into my conversation. See if he'll give me a shout out.
Well, no, listen, yes. I want to transition just a little bit here back into your career.
Okay.
Again, you recently retired.
From the securities business. I'm not retired to retire.
From the financial securities industry. What would you tell someone, 20s, 30s, and you do it on a daily, what would you tell someone that they need to be doing to set themselves up for retirement?
Well, I didn't think I was going to talk about this in this session, but the be, do, have, I think, is the biggest thing. I mean, I think people get everything backwards. If I can have a new truck, if I can have a new watch, you know, I mean, everybody, then that says I am something, I've done something. And that's not the way this works. And my friend Bob Dunwoody, who has a series, I think he's still around, but and met him when I was in my 20s. He had a phrase, he called it be, do, have. You decide, again, a dream, a vision, to be something. The best defensive end.
Defensive tackle.
Defensive tackle. Thank you very much. Defensive tackle. Well, then you've got the goal set out. And then do is the activities it takes to be the do. I mean, to be.
Yep.
And then what happens? You win a championship. That's the have part. But you can't reverse that. You can't be the national champion without doing things that gets you to be. And so, and I'm not eloquent, I mean, I'm not very eloquent about this. I could do it if we had a chart and write it out. But the point is that the goal. Well, you'll never be the governor of the state of Kentucky because look where you're from. Well, that was crazy that I couldn't have been the governor. Now, my career has not been that direction. But you see what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
And I think if you even went to a small basketball court this afternoon and you pointed to some young man or girl, well, here we finished all this, and you say, well, who are you? And they'd say, the little girl would say, what's the girl that Clark that just went to the
Oh, Caitlin Clark.
Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
That little girl would say, I'm Caitlin Clark. You see what I'm saying? She is imaging herself as the champion. Now, if she doesn't have the skills and the talents, I mean, you know, again, that's not going to work. But the point is that I'm going to be this. Well, what adults should tell that child? Well, you can't do that. What if Caitlin Clark, what if they told her that? So the point is you've got to have that vision and then do. And that's what I'd say about retirement. You want to retire comfortably? You're either going to inherit it or you're going to marry it. You see, or you're going to work for it. I mean, that's a silliness, but I mean, you see, there's only certain things you're either going to work it, inherit it, and those last two I don't care anything about. You know, the inheritance. I mean, what if you can't inherit something and then move it to the next level? What is that? That's nothing, but comfort. And people that are just comfortable normally are not happy.
Let me ask you this: a lot of times in my generation, people define success by the amount of money in the bank account.
Oh, yeah.
The kind of car you drive.
Oh, yeah. That's what I'm saying, the have part.
What does success look like to you? Because often I talk to people, their version of success now is I wake up in the morning and do what I want to do. I
That's
get to see my
that's it.
grandkids.
There you go. That's it.
What does success look, when you were 30, 40, 50 years old compared to now, what does that look like to you now? Like, what makes you happy?
Well, we don't see what's right in front of us most of the time. So you're 30 years old, you're working however many hours a day, the weekend, you got to mow the yard, you got to do all that stuff, and you're missing out, what I think young folks are missing out, those 2 little babies that you've got at home, or in my case, 3 young boys.
Yeah.
Did you take them fishing? Did you teach them to ride the bicycle? Things that will be, at the end of the day, when they're gone from school and they're doing their own career, what are they going to decide? Well, Dad, how much money you got in the bank? That's not going to be it. It's going to be, hey, thank you for taking me fishing, hunting, teaching me how to drive a nail in a piece of wood. That is the difference. Now, everybody now's focus is, my children have got to play soccer and they got to do this and they got to ballet and they got all this. Well, that's not a relationship with the parent. You've turned them over to somebody else to entertain them.
Yeah.
And did I do a good job of that? I probably should have done better. And so I look now at your kids or my grandchildren and I think, what is success? Success is the ability to do those happy things. To travel, you got to have money to do that.
Yep.
In a way, if you want to travel. But traveling could be go to Mammoth Cave. It doesn't have to be, go to the south of France. So the point is that what is success? That is measurable only by the individual. Yeah. It should not be measured by those around you or those that tell you what success is. Yeah. That's a very personal thing. The very best camera person, the very best editor-in-chief of the newspaper, or the television station, or one of my sons is a film animator, and he's great at it.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Another one, he's an entrepreneur. He's in his own success of his own business. Well, shouldn't be measured by me. It should be measured by the individual. And you're successful too.
Thank you. What I would ask you this: from going back to 2016 to now, what growth have you seen in me? What things have I done different that's helped me get from when you met me as a kid, 23, whatever I was, year-old kid that didn't have anything to now?
Well, when I met you, you were a man.
I guess so, yeah.
You were already a man. I mean, and when you say the change, or how have you matured, what I saw in you then, I still see in you now. So that consistent about being trustworthy, honest, focusing on others, even in your career it represented others in the real estate purchase of their home. Yeah. I mean, you think about the biggest purchase most people will make. That's a huge amount of trust. If you do what you tell people you do, and you execute on what it is. So the development how you've changed is you've matured in an industry by using the core principles that you have as an individual.
Well,
that's the change. You've matured in your own career, but your principles have not changed.
One of the best compliments I got a little over a year ago, maybe more, a client of mine, they were torn between 2 houses. They had this guy had a young family, and he was asking me, which house did I think was better? One house was at $400,000, one house was at $300,000. And I said, man, honestly, for the things you told me, the size of your family, I said, honestly, you need to buy this $300K house, not the $400. And he came to me a little later, now he ended up choosing a totally different house, but he came to me at the closing table, and he said, the moment I knew that you're a really honest person, you led me to the house that really fit my needs.
Right.
And I knew which one fit my needs. He said, I was wanting to test, did you care more about me or more about getting a higher commission? Mm-hmm. And I told him, I said, listen, you could have just asked me that. I'm never going to put dollars over people. So
that's important.
But that was important to me because he recognized.
Do you know, G-Money, when you say that, though, that's a hard thing for some people to believe unless they know the individual. But see, when you said that, and I asked you that just recently, that was one of the questions I asked you, how you've been successful. If you tell the truth every time, you don't have to remember what you said.
Yep, that's very true.
You know, people that don't tell the truth have to constantly remember what they said in the last conversation. But if you can tell the truth every time when you speak, the story, you don't exaggerate. Now, I put a little color in them sometimes to make the story a little better.
Yeah.
But my point is that in that relationship with someone, I think, again, that's if you tell me something I know, I could go to the bank with it.
Yep.
And a lot of times people want to say, well, it's all got to be about the money. Well, I put in this amount and you put in that amount and we're going to do this. Well, if you don't start out, it's kind of like a marriage, and I'm not really an expert at marriage. But any partnership, it can't be 50-50. You got to put in 100% of what you can, and I got to put in 100% of what I can.
Yep.
But I think people start, because immediately when you start saying, oh, well, G-Money's got 40% of this deal and I've got 60. Well, I'm putting in 70% of the work, and he's putting in 20. Then everybody starts being a scorekeeper. And you can't do that in a successful relationship.
No, you cannot. I want to close out this session just telling you over the 9 years what you've meant to me.
Oh, I don't know that you ought to do that. I cry when they open a new grocery store in town. Myers opened up, and I thought, all that fruit's in the line, and they played the national anthem. Oh, I can't. Don't do this.
I keep it lighthearted.
Okay.
I keep it lighthearted.
All right.
I keep a lighthearted baseline.
That's cool. That's cool.
You've been the person that even at 10 o'clock at night, I'm just kind of stressed, playing out scenarios, I can call for just advice. You've been a person, it's lunchtime. Are you busy? No, not busy. You want to go grab lunch? I just need somebody to talk to. You've been a confidence boost.
Thank you.
I feel confident going into deals. I never forget the first really big deal we did. It was a $2 million deal. And I said, hey, I know this is a large number, $2 million. Would you want to invest in it with me? And you didn't have hesitation. You just said yes. You've been just a great friend and someone that I know that I can call, throw things off of. And you've given me a comfort level that, up until recently, my sister's here now, but I'm not from Bowling Green. I'm from Mississippi. I don't have any family, and you are a large part of the reason I felt comfortable even staying here, because I don't have any blood here. And so I just want to tell you thank you for that, the role you've played in my life, because it's been extraordinary. I don't know that I'm doing the things that I'm doing now if you don't step in and we have the relationship we have, so thank you.
You're a good human being. You've meant a lot to me.
Thank you. Love you.
Love you too.
Love you so much. I appreciate you taking the time to do this with me.
Yeah.
I know in retirement you don't have a lot of time now.
I don't. Actually, I was 5 minutes late for this, and being on time is being early. That really is the first thing. That was another last thing on this, and I don't know where this fits. You asked me early on, what would I tell younger people?
Yeah.
Showing up. Just showing up to the deal. Whether someone's invited you to, it doesn't matter. Just showing up is the first step. If you're not an introvert, if you're an introvert and you need to be an extrovert in certain circumstances, just show up. That's the first step. And then be honest.
Yeah.
And if it works, persistence without exception. Thank you, G-Money.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.